Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity news for growth stage companies, management teams, and their investors. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Monday, September 9th, and I continue to be trolled in these videos that I'm making by the U.S. Department of Justice, who just last week when I told you all to ignore the nation-state threat actors, the DOJ comes out and drops not only one but two pieces of news. The first that many have heard about, no doubt, around a Russian influence operation taking place here within many of the U.S. conservative media outlets. And then they go ahead the next day or the day before and indict 5 GRU officers and 1 civilian for their role in hacking Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. So for the record, I still think that you should ignore the nation-state threat actors and let the DOJ handle it. Clearly, they've got a handle on what's happening over there and are pretty good at managing that risk. From a news perspective in the last week, there was some good news here from the Seattle Public Library announcing that their catalog and lending services are now both back online following a Memorial Day ransomware attack. The calendar now, of course, reads after Labor Day, so that means that these resources were effectively down the entire summer and then some. And while we don't yet have a public report around the details behind the incident, I'm seeing more and more attacks that are specifically targeted at employees of organizations. There was a new campaign outlined today that appears to be targeting employees of U.S. home improvement store Lowe's, driven through malicious ads on Google. In this case, Googling the general URL of this Lowe's employee portal and not actually typing the whole thing returns results, the top 3 of which are malicious ads that look legitimate but are actually phishing sites designed to get users to enter their credentials. So attacks like this string together a few different mechanics to trick users, and it makes our job on the defender side of training and defending these these kind of advanced threat patterns even more difficult. The attack really leverages things that are pretty common workflows within using these browser-based tools, and it makes it difficult for us to empower users to identify them. Google, who famously paid $20 billion for 1 year to be the default search engine on Safari, takes these things typed into this URL bar as a search and returns results if you don't type in an actual full domain. So, an unsavvy user may think that they are just going there. They may actually be a savvy user but not have the bookmark, not remember the site, just using it as a quick shortcut. All of these are going to give the attacker an opportunity to serve a malicious ad. And the attackers are even going beyond that. They're using lookalike domains, which is a technique that we're familiar with and is common. So a sharp-eyed user might spot that. But they are using these placeholders where if you look at the domain up front, if you just go to the URL at the top level, right, fakesite.com, it looks like just a placeholder site. What they're doing is actually redirecting only those traffic served from the malicious ads, just like you can redirect traffic from any ad with an identifier. Then you get the phishing page. So even if you're going around looking for lookalike URLs and domains, when you visit this for your company, it's not going to look like an exact phishing page. It'll just look like a placeholder, and you might ignore it. It's only when the user clicks through that they actually get served with this page that does look like your portal, captures their credentials, and then plays them forward to great victory. So while many of us might have training programs in place, whether it's something like KnowBe4 or Microsoft's built-in phishing awareness tools within M365, that's only going to get us so far. I think to really boost our defenses, we've got to be thinking about enabling and empowering our users to think more critically and really engage with them around what is happening from the threats and attacks perspective, why it's important, and what actions we want them to take. I know it's common to look at users as maybe our biggest source of risk and be a little dismissive of this group, particularly unsophisticated users or frontline employees. But the reality is that whatever changes are going on in the technological environment, users are going to be a constant, and they're going to have accounts, they're going to have connected machines, and they're going to need legitimate access to these systems that run our business and house our sensitive data. So I think we need to take a broader, more thoughtful, and maybe more inclusive approach to really upskilling our users. We'll still need technical and administrative controls to backstop some of these things or to limit the scope of which we need our users to be the source of defense for us. But I think spending time hands-on with users and really helping them understand how these bad things happen, why we want to prevent them, and then what to do if they see something that isn't quite right, that's going to give us a fighting chance to catch these attacks before they succeed. If your average user doesn't know how to reach out and report when something doesn't look right, or to double check before clicking, or to say, hey, I did a thing, but I'm not sure if I should have, then that's a miss on our side. It's all well and good to have a phish report button in your email client, but for attacks that take place in the browser, for an attack that happens on a mobile device, for something that's happening via a phone call, that button in your Outlook isn't going to help you. There's going to be an ongoing effort here, right? Engaging users takes time. It takes energy. It's tricky to define the ROI, but I think we're really to the point where we just don't have a choice, right? Start thinking of your users as human sentries who are out there on the front line and can identify these anomalies. Our job is only to empower them and then listen to what they're telling us. From a fundraising perspective, we've got a pretty good top line number this week, more than 9.3 billion in newly committed capital. The bulk of that, though, is from just two funds. One, a Warburg Pincus fund with over $4 billion coming into their structured transactions fund, and then Park Square Capital of London putting out a 3.4 billion euro European direct lending fund, both of which seem well timed for the market ahead. But again, I think it really does seem like the bigger players with proven track records are the ones most likely to be able to raise in this environment. And it also seems like it's driven by maybe hesitation from LPs in their demands for liquidity. We saw a little bit of evidence for this morning where Axios reported that Sequoia Capital finally sold 10% of their shares in Stripe at the most recent $70 billion valuation, only to generate liquidity for early investors. Stripe famously is eschewing their IPO, so these investors who invested in 2009 and 2012 respectively have been plenty patient waiting for their liquidity, right? It is now 2024, so we're going on 15 years for that first round of investors. And that said, the mechanics of these markets really aren't built for this long-term buy and hold approach. So what that actually means for investors and for operators, I think remains to be seen, but it is interesting to see Sequoia facilitate this for their LPs at a 10% stake of a $70 billion company. So again, like many things here in the financial side of these updates, it is a bit of a wait and see, but I do think LPs are driving for liquidity, and funds that can't return that are going to struggle. So with that, a reminder that you can find all the links to the stories we covered in the comments section below. You can find back issues of these videos as well as written transcripts at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.